You survived the conflict. The shouting stopped, the manipulation stopped. The person who drained you is gone from the room, and now you are standing in the wreckage, waiting for the relief to arrive. It does not arrive. Instead, you feel like a stranger wearing your own face, and nobody warned you that this is the most dangerous phase of the entire war. Here is the statement that will make you angry, and I want you to sit with that anger instead of closing this video. The version of you that survived the conflict is not the real you healing. It is a temporary shell, and if you do not treat it as temporary, you will get trapped inside it permanently. Most people call this stage recovery. It is not recovery. It is a battlefield with no visible enemy, and the enemy is your own mind trying to convince you that the numb, hollow person you feel like right now is who you actually are. Your instinct in this moment is to wait. Wait until you feel like yourself again. Wait until the fog lifts. Wait until motivation returns on its own, and then start rebuilding. This instinct is the single most expensive mistake you can make. You are treating identity like a switch that flips back on its own. It does not work that way. And behavioral scientists who study this exact phenomenon have a name for the gap you are standing in right now. They call it the identity lag. Your actions can change today. Your circumstances can change today. But the internal sense of who you are always arrives late to the party. Sometimes months late, sometimes years late. And waiting for it to show up first before you act is how good people stay frozen for the rest of their lives. So we are not waiting. We are deploying a protocol built on real psychological mechanisms, not comforting slogans. Phase 1 is narrative reclamation. Every mind runs on a story, whether you have written it consciously or not. And right now your mind is running the story that the conflict wrote for you. The story where you are the damaged one, the exhausted one, the one who lost something irreplaceable. Psychologists who study what they call narrative identity have found something the self-help industry rarely tells you plainly. People who consciously reframe their hardest chapters as what researchers term redemption narratives, meaning suffering that leads somewhere rather than suffering that simply happened, tend to show stronger psychological outcomes than people who leave the story unedited. This is not positive thinking. This is not pretending the damage did not happen. This is taking the pen back from the person or the situation that was writing your story for you, and writing the next chapter yourself, in your own handwriting. Tonight, before you sleep, you write one sentence, out loud or on paper, that states what the conflict cost you and what it taught you about your own limits. That single sentence is the first brick in your new armor, and it belongs to nobody but you. Here is your micro-weapon for today. When your mind replays the conflict, and it will, you do not fight the memory, and you do not suppress it. You interrupt it with one line, spoken internally, with total flatness. That chapter is closed. I am the author now. Say it exactly like that. Not with anger, not with drama, with the flat certainty of someone reading a fact off a page. This is not a mantra for comfort. It is a redirection command for a mind that is stuck replaying old footage. Now, before Phase 2, understand something about why most rebuilding attempts fail completely. People try to think their way back to themselves. They journal, they analyze, they wait for clarity to strike like lightning before they take a single external action. This is backward, and it is the second trap waiting for you. Clarity does not produce action. Action produces clarity. Behavioral researchers who study identity change keep observing the same pattern. People who rebuild successfully do not think first and act second. They run what researchers call provisional selves, small, deliberate experiments with a version of themselves they are not yet certain of, and the identity solidifies through the doing, never through the deliberating. Phase 2 is the provisional deployment. You are going to choose one small, specific action this week that belongs to the person you are trying to become, not the person the conflict left behind, not a vague resolution, a specific, observable action. If the conflict trained you to go silent and disappear, your provisional action is speaking one honest sentence in a low-stakes situation this week, out loud, to another person. If the conflict trained you to over-explain and beg for approval, your provisional action is stating one boundary in 5 words or fewer, and then stopping talking. You are not doing this because you feel ready. You will never feel ready. You are doing it because the doing is what builds the feeling, not the other way around. This is behavioral physics, not motivation. Every action either invests in the old identity or invests in the new one. There is no neutral action, and you have been making unconscious deposits into the old, damaged version of yourself for longer than you realize. If this framework is making sense to you, this is the exact moment most people quietly close the tab and forget everything they just heard within the hour. Do not be most people. Subscribing is not a favor to this channel. It is a piece of armor you are choosing to keep nearby, because the next time your mind tries to drag you back into an old story that no longer belongs to you, you will need the next protocol ready and waiting, not buried deep in a search history you never revisit. Phase 3 is the boundary lock. This is where most rebuilding efforts quietly collapse, because people rebuild an identity and then let the same conflict pattern, or the same category of person, walk straight through the front door again. A rebuilt self without a boundary is a castle with no gate. The mechanism here comes directly from assertiveness psychology, and it is simple enough to use today. When someone attempts to pull you back into the old dynamic, whether it is guilt, provocation, or a demand disguised as a favor, you do not defend, you do not explain, and you do not justify. You state the boundary once, in a neutral tone, and you let the silence afterward do the work. Something as short as, "That no longer works for me," delivered flat and final, without an exclamation point in your voice. Explaining invites negotiation. A flat statement closes the door. This shift, from justifying to simply stating, is something assertiveness training treats as one of the more underused moves available to you, because our instinct screams to over-explain ourselves to people who were never going to listen with good faith anyway. This is not therapy compressed into 5 minutes, and it will not erase what the conflict cost you. What it will do is stop you from handing the next stretch of your life to a version of yourself that the conflict invented, instead of the version you are choosing to build, one deliberate action at a time. The identity lag will close eventually, whether you engineer it or not. The only question the protocol answers is, who is in control while it closes? The old story, or the author who just took the pen back? Keep the armor on. Do not let anyone, including the echo of who you used to be, pull your strings again.